All right. Thank you so much, Candace. I appreciate being here today and everyone here today to listen about this. You know, in the NHD world, it's not very often that we do get new disclosures. So when we do, all of us NHD nerds get super excited. Okay. So it's something for us to share with you guys and make sure that you guys know and can be able to explain things clearly to your clients. So I am going to go over what hardening your home means. I'm also going to go over what defensible space means. I'm going to share with you guys the areas in Santa Clara County that are in fire zones. And then I will go over the FHDS form and the changes that were made to it on July 1st. And then we will answer any questions that anybody has. And if you have a question and you don't want to forget it, just shoot it in the chat. And, you know, Candace, if you'd like to monitor the chat, then we can address questions, you know, at that moment. If you would like, that's totally fine. I don't mind being waved down. Sometimes it's better to address right at that moment. So I am going to share my screen here. All right. Now I need to get all of these little things out of the way so I can actually see my screen. All right. Okay. So we're going to start off with hardening your home. Okay. So what that means, as you can see here, this is the CAL FIRE website. So if you go to calfire.com, it's wonderful there. They have all kinds of different areas for you to fish around and learn all kinds of different things. This particular spot on their website is about hardening your home. So it goes through and it gives you a video for yourself or your clients. You know, you can actually, you know, tell your clients about this and they can go and check this out as well if they really would like to learn more. Then it goes through everything about hardening your home. So I'm going to go through and touch on a few things just so you guys can see what that means. Hardening your home means that, well, and just so you guys know, January 1st of 2010, prior to that date, homes weren't considered hardened, okay? So they weren't built in a hardened fashion. After January 1st, 2010 is when it was a requirement for builders to build homes in a hardened fashion. So homes before this need some updating, right? So that would pertain to the roof. As you know, we can't have a shingles roof anymore. The vents on top of the home, you want to make sure that there is a metal mesh that cover the vents. So the top of a chimney needs to have a metal mesh. Any of the little posts, little stacks that come up out of the roof, they need to have a metal mesh on top. The gutters around the home, they also need to have that metal mesh. The reason is as we know, we don't want debris, leaves, pine needles, whatever it may be, to be able to collect in those places and be easily combustible. So that metal mesh needs to be on there. The windows to the home, they need to be the dual pane, of course, instead of the single pane. Walls, they don't just want them to be just wood walls, panels, shingles type things anymore. It needs, if it is that way, it needs to have a sealant on it, just like the decks. They need to have a sealant that is a combustible sealant that's on there so that it won't start on fire. It won't be easy to start on fire like it's kindling. So those are like here, I mentioned the rain gutters, the decks, the chimney, your garage, there's different things that you need to do to the garage, and a lot of this, it's pretty common sense, right? I mean, these are things that probably we all take for granted, we really don't think about until something big happens, like all of the fires that we've had in the last 2 years. So now that is when Car decided, this has always been a form that Car has wanted to bring into effect. It's just they expedited it because of all these fires that have been happening. So this is something that has always been in the NHD, you know, whether the home is in a high or severely high fire zone, that has always been disclosed in the NHD. It's just the form that is new, okay? So anything on the fences, those type of things, you know, again, they have to be, you know, 5 feet away from a non-combustible material. And there's just different rules for the home so that it will not, you know, start on fire easily. So does anyone have any questions about hardening your home? And just so you guys know, I can't see you because I hid you up here, so it didn't block my screen. So just go ahead and speak.
I have a question. How did they come up with the term hardening your home?
That's a great, great question. I have no idea, and there hasn't been one person to be able to explain it. I have asked, you know, multiple people, jurisdictions, even fire departments. I'm like, and you know what's really crazy about this is when they came out with this form, a lot of fire departments didn't have any clue about it. I called because in my areas, I wanted to get more information and just have a lot of questions already answered that I felt might be asked. And they had never even heard about this form. So now there are jurisdictions that are now up to date. They understand hardening your home. I have no idea. I mean, we all kind of have our own little, you know, guesses. You know, hardening meaning, you know, of course, making it defensible, right? So you hunker down, harden down, whatever it may be. But I apologize. I don't know where they came up with that. And unfortunately, no one does.
Okay, well, thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. All right. So if no one has any other questions on that, I'm going to go over to defensible space. And this is the biggest change in the form, okay? So the original form that came out on January 1st of this year was mainly about hardening your home. And so the form only pertained, it only pertained to homes that were built before January 1st, 2010, and also required a TDS. And they were in a high to severely high fire zone. Okay, so that was the original form. So they had to check some boxes, which I'll show you, and sign it, and that was it. Well, they decided that there was more that needed to be done. So they needed to have defensible space. Defensible space means the area around the structure, the area around the home. Okay, so we need, they called it, I do know this, they called it defensible space so that they can defend the home and the area around the home. The fire department can get in there. So again, CAL FIRE gives you a wonderful link here that explains it, has wonderful videos, just giving you examples of what you need to do around your home. I will say this again, it's a little bit of common sense, you know, because we know that we need to keep some things cleaned up, right, around our house, you know, if we're in these high fire zones, so that fires can't spark up. So what it does is it gives you a wonderful illustration, as you can see here. And just a side note for you, as you can see, this illustration is showing you a home that is actually pretty much on flat ground. So what I'm about to explain to you pertains to a home that isn't surrounded by big mountains or big hills, okay? So it's a little bit more on the flatter scale, okay? So as you can see, it's just showing you that the area around the home needs to be in compliance with defensible space. So there's rules for 30 feet and there's rules for 100 feet. And so it goes down through here and explains to you everything about what needs to happen 30 feet from the building and structures and what needs to happen 100 feet. So, you know, removing all of the dead plants. We definitely want dead plants, weeds, any leaves, any, you know, pine needles, anything like that needs to be cleaned up on a regular basis. Any branches that might be hanging over your roof line. If you look at this picture here, as you can see, all trees need to be at least 10 feet away from the home. We cannot have a tree that is close to the home and possibly close to, of course, to the chimney and has branches that are hanging over. That is just, you're just asking for a fire right there. So we need to make sure that all trees are away from the decking, away from the home. Anything underneath. So if you do have a deck, anything underneath that deck needs to be either mowed down, you know, taken down. There can be no wood piles underneath that deck. So those are all things that need to be taken care of underneath that deck as well. It also goes into the 100 feet, you know, again, it's kind of the same thing as the 30 feet, but what they do go into is, and I'll show you this other picture, is they go into trees and bushes. So as you can see here, it gives you a little illustration of a bush of some sort being close to trees and how easily this can happen. A fire can just pass on. So they want to make sure that there is at least a 6 foot minimum. And then of course here, you need to make sure that your bushes have, you know, a 6 foot minimum between the lowest branch of the tree. So it goes into talking about horizontal spacing in between the trees and the bushes. And so when you see things like this with the defensible space, this is actually super important. And I'll explain why once I start showing you the FHDS. Does anyone have any questions as far as defensible space at this moment? And you guys can all go to CAL FIRE and click on these links and see it for yourself too. And you know, and honestly, these links should be provided for you in your NHD to make it easy for you and your clients to be able just to look at the NHD and click on the link and go straight to that as well. Okay. Here's the wonderful form. And I will tell you this form came out on January 1st. It was changed on July 1st. And I will tell you that it's going to be changed again. They have not told us what those changes will entail, but there is more that that CAR is wanting to include with this form. So definitely I will keep everybody updated as soon as I hear what these changes are going to be or when it's going to happen. We work very closely with CAR, and so I'll be able to share that information. But for right now, we're going to use this form. So as you can see up here, so let me back up just a little bit. So the FHDS form is now required if the home requires a TDS and if the home is in a high to severely high fire zone. So the hardening part of it kind of doesn't matter anymore if the home was built before January 1st, 2010, because we're concentrating now more on the defensible space. So the two things that you need to just know is if the home is in a high to severely high fire zone, and if the home requires the TDS, then this form is needed, okay? So this part right here, all of this up here has not changed. This pertains to hardening the home. So let's say that you have a property that was built, it's in a high fire zone, it requires the TDS, and it was built before January 1st, 2010. It's the whole shebang, okay? That means, yes, this section does need to be checked only if, and only if, you can see right here, if the seller is aware. If the seller is aware that they only have single pane and not tempered glass windows, if they are only aware that their rain gutters are without metal mesh. I mean, we don't want your sellers to go out there and get on a ladder on top of the roof and start checking stuff out. They don't have to do that. It's only if they know. So if they know, and they've made it very clear right here, seller is aware. If they know, go ahead and have them, you know, check the one or two or all of these boxes. If they are like, I have no clue, I don't know any of these things, then you leave it blank, okay? It's only if they're aware. So the new part of the form is the defensible space requirements. So we're going to talk about when it's required and who needs to do what, okay? Right now, there's two sections here, as you can see, with the defensible space compliance. No local ordinance and a local vegetation management ordinance. Right now, as we speak, there isn't any local ordinance in your guys' county. And I have a few other counties that I cover, and they also do not have a local ordinance. What a local ordinance means is, let's say that Santa Clara County decides that they want to have a local ordinance pertaining to this. So they are going to write up an ordinance that says a seller must provide a defensible space compliance form showing that they did X, Y, and Z. So they cut the trees down. They have to cut any tree that's around their, you know, within 10 feet of their property. They have to make sure that all of the bushes and the shrubs and the leaves are cleaned up and manicured. So at a local level, just like we have state level disclosures and local level disclosures, Santa Clara County could decide that they want to have a local ordinance pertaining to this, saying that the seller has to do this. If that is the case, let's say Santa Clara County does have that, then that's where you would come down here, and that's where this area right here would be filled out, because seller shall provide documentation that the property is in compliance with the defensible space law. So they are required to provide this 5 days prior to the closing of escrow. So it has to be done before escrow closes. So that is why it is so, so important to order the NHD at the time of listing or prior. If you know that you have the listing and you're getting your TDS and your prelim and everything together, get that NHD as well. If you're going to visit a potential listing, get the NHD. There should never be a cost, and because there should never be a cost until the closing of escrow, get the NHD, know what you're going into ahead of time. That way you can work with your clients and you can be at the highest level of educated about this property and say, okay, this is what needs to happen so that we can sell your property quickly, right? Because we just want you guys to have a smooth transaction. So only if there's a local vegetation ordinance would that pertain to the seller doing these things prior to the close of escrow, okay? Now, let's say that you have a very aggressive buyer, and your buyer, and there is a local vegetation ordinance in place, and your buyer is like, I don't care if the seller's kind of like, oh, you know, and they know that they're going to have to spend $10,000 on cutting down trees or whatever. But your buyer is like, I don't care. I want this property. I will sign or do whatever I need to do to get it. So that's when this box would be checked. Obviously, it would be in your contract that the buyer has agreed to take care of this. And then they have a certain amount of time to take care of that after the close of escrow. I believe it's 1 year after the close of escrow. So let's go back to this section right here, because this is really where we all are right now. It's probably going to change. We do foresee a lot of counties coming up with their own local ordinances that are in high to severely high fire zones, just because they want to protect the homes, protect their communities, you know, and all of that. Where I live, Shaver Lake, I don't know if any of you heard of Shaver Lake before, but we, you know, a year and a half ago or so, when we had all those fires here, Shaver Lake, almost the whole sweet little town almost went up in flames. It was a wonderful blessing that it did not happen. But I will say that from the little things that we hear, they're probably going to end up coming up with a local ordinance to make sure that everyone is in compliance at Shaver Lake, so that they can prevent these fires possibly from spreading further and demolishing a wonderful community. It's just horrible, the things that have happened, especially up north. So it's heart-wrenching. So for right now, this is the area that you guys need to worry about. So basically what this means is, right now there's no local ordinance in Santa Clara County. So if you have a property that is in a high, severely high fire zone and this form is required, then that means that it almost turns into a negotiation between the buyer and the seller. So it's, I mean, right now, I don't know if there's any negotiations going on in the crazy market that we're in, but eventually it will be something that it will be in contingent of. A couple of different scenarios for you. You have a seller that needs to sell and needs to sell yesterday. So you have your NHD in hand, you know that this form is needed. So then you go ahead and tell your seller what they need to do. Well, if you're willing to do anything and everything, then let's get all of the defensible space ordinance law stuff done so that there's no hiccups in the transaction. So if they do that, then you would click this little box here that says that they have done this within the previous 6 months. So they've obtained the documentation that they are in compliance with the state. And the way that they would do that is calling the local fire department and having somebody come out. As far as I know right now, in all the counties that I work in, there are not any inspectors for this yet. These inspectors are different than your home inspectors, okay? So they specifically just do this. But right at this moment today, there are no specific inspectors for this yet. So you would just need to have the fire department come out, make sure that, you know, they say yes. And then you would contact your associations, the attorneys, and just state there is no local inspection company, but I do have this from the local fire department and everything is signed and you're done, okay? But now let's say your buyer, again, you have an aggressive buyer, they want the property, they're like, no, we'll take care of it. They escrow can close and they have 1 year to show proof that they are in compliance with the defensible space ordinance. I get a lot of questions that, are there people checking on this? Are there people going out there after a year and checking to see if they've done what they're supposed to do? As of right now, it is very backed up. The fire departments are very slow to get out to certain places. Is it happening? Yes. Is it happening quickly at this moment? No. So, but just so you guys know, it does happen. So that is everything about the form. Does anybody have any questions about the form? You guys are awesome. You guys are just on it and you're getting this. Okay, this is good. All right, what I do want to show you is there are a few maps. So again, let me take you over here first, actually. This is CAL FIRE's website, okay? So if you go to CAL FIRE's website, if you come down here just a little bit, here is the link that will take you to the defensible space that I was showing you, as will this one right here is a request of dispensable space inspection so that you can take a self-assessment survey. So your client can, I apologize. So you could tell your client that they could go on here, and if they click this defensible space right here, it of course goes through everything about the defensible space like I had explained. But as you can see over here, these counties have started to have a little link. So this is all, as you see, down south, you know, Los Angeles, Orange County, Santa Barbara, and Ventura. So they could, if somebody lived in, you know, down south in this area, they could click on one of these links and answer these questions pertaining to that county. So the more counties that jump on this bandwagon, the list will continue to grow, okay? So, but if you would like to, but still anybody can go here and do this self-assessment. So they would just click right here, click continue. And then they would start answering questions. They would read all of this and click next and start asking and answering questions. In one of these slides, it might be, let's see, yes, it is. Page 2, it asks you your street number. So they would put in the address and then they would continue to click next and answer all these questions. And it would tell them everything they needed to know about their property. So it's a handy little thing that CAL FIRE has provided for your clients, just to kind of do some self-checking, okay? Now I'm gonna go back over here to some maps. So also, if you go to FEMA, FEMA has all of these maps for you for the fire zone. So I just wanted to share them with you guys just so you could see. This one is Saratoga. This area, whatever of course you see in red, is considered that it's in a very high fire severity zone. And just so you guys know, these maps were done in 2008. Okay, so they have not been updated since. That being said, they are in the process of updating the maps. They are not completed. We will have them, of course, as soon as FEMA releases them. But as of right now, they are just still working on it. Okay, this is Monte Sereno, which is quite a bit. Morgan Hill, they have a little bit of an area. And this one is San Jose, I believe. I'm sorry, my little bars in the way. Oh no, I'm so sorry. This is Cupertino. So just very, very tiny, very tiny area. And this is Los Gatos. And you know what? I had San Jose, but for some reason, it has disappeared on me. San Jose is so tiny. It was like Cupertino, where it was just a tiny, tiny little sliver.
Lisa, these maps don't really show streets. It's kind of hard to figure out where the fire zone area is and where it's not. I mean, if you blow them up, will it give us any more definition?
You know, it doesn't.
Like the school attendance maps, you really can't see where you.
I agree.
Okay.
I agree, and it doesn't, unfortunately.
I don't even know what I'm looking at here.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was one thing that I tried to investigate was, you know, the breakdown with streets and different things like that. They do not provide that for us.
Okay. I was just wondering because I'm in Los Gatos right by Vasona, and I think we're in the high fire area, but I can't tell from that map that you put on there.
Right. Let me go back to.
It's kind of hard to figure out.
And that was the thing, you know,
If you put your address in that Cal Fire area where it says, it will tell you if you're in there or not. So your client, or you could do it for your client to see whether or not the property's in the area they need to worry about.
Yes. Yes.
Like the Los Gatos Mountains homes. Okay.
Yes, that is something else that should be provided in your NHD, is a link for you to take, that would take you to Cal Fire. You would go there and you could enter the address yourself so that it would pinpoint and show you. Okay. But yes, if you go to Cal Fire, you can definitely put in the address and it will show you where you are in here. This is Los Gatos. Okay. All right. So does anybody have any questions for me? Does anyone work in these different areas that I have mentioned? Have you guys, have you ever ran into a high fire severity zone area before?
No.
No one? Well,
I know I'm in one, but I don't know. And you know, I have trees all around my property. And I have a condo complex next door and their trees are hanging over my fence and my roof.
And that was the thing I was going to also state, is the picture that I showed you, you know, that was pretty much kind of on flat ground with the defensible space laws. If you are looking at a home that actually is in foothills, you know, maybe the backyard is kind of hilly, but then has a mountain that goes up, and the sides of the house are the same thing, where it's real mountainy around the home, then you need to contact your local fire department. You need to have them come out and you need to say, what do I need to do to be in compliance with defensible space? Because when there's mountains and hills around the home, it's a little different than your flat ground rules. Okay. So if that's the case where, and a lot, I'll be honest with you, a lot of, because I've been on calls where they've said, well, I have a condo and we're surrounded by this and that, and, you know, but I think that we might be in a fire zone. You know, I would double check. I would just see if you are, because what I've heard is, you know, this side of the street might be in a fire zone, but this side of the street is not, or this house that's down here is not. It's just like flood zones. A home that could be in a flood zone here is straight across the street may not be in a flood zone. So, you know, it's always good just to know, go to that Cal Fire, you know, even if it's your own home, you know, I wonder, you know, go to that Cal Fire website and put in your address and you'll find out if you're in that high or to very high severity zone. The other thing is if the home is in a wildland area, what that means, a wildland area is taken care of by the state. So then you don't have to worry about doing the things to the home. The state is going to take care of the area around the home. And that's only if it's in a wildland area. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a quick question about, is there like a potential vendor that we would contact to trim like a super high tree? For example, I have a lead in Boulder Creek. It's near Santa Cruz, and there's lots of really, really tall trees. I don't think like a basic gardener would be able to get up to these really tall trees. So how would I go about that?
I agree with you 100%. That is something, there's a couple different things I will suggest. I am not familiar, nor have I heard of who people are using for this in that area. That is something that, you know, would be good just to know, is who does take care of it, and maybe even, you know, calling your county and finding out, you know, who takes care of the extremely tall trees. Who do we call for those type of things, so that you have a couple names on hand for your clients. The other thing because you're right, your local gardener is not going to be able to take care of that. That's a special job. and it could be a very pricey job. So it's another thing to know about for if you're on the buyer side, you know, to know, even though you're on the buyer side, because normally it's on the seller side that orders the NHD, will be proactive on the buyer side and maybe have it as well. That way, you know, if there's something, so you're protecting your buyer, you know that you can say to your buyer, okay, just so you know, these 5 trees are going to need to be cut down. And this is somebody that you can call to get an estimate about how much that's going to cost. Because if it's going to cost them $20,000 to cut down these trees, they may be like, no, I don't, let's go look somewhere else. So it's just, you know, being informative, being helpful ahead of time on your buyer side as well. The other thing I suggest is either contact who you trust for insurance, or even maybe contact a few, if you know within your office, if there's different people that use different people, you know, having 3 or 4 different insurance people that you have talked to about fire insurance. Fire insurance, as we know, is astronomical right now, and it's actually hard to get. So there are certain companies that are providing it at a very high price, and there's a lot of companies that are not providing it, which means you would need to go to the state level. And at the state level for fire insurance, it is just so expensive. It is crazy how expensive it is. So just kind of having that in your back pocket as well, of a ballpark of companies that do offer it, that would be something else that would be good, you know, to have in your back pocket for your clients.
Sure, thank you.
You're welcome. And if you guys ever get in a situation where you are wondering, you know, if the home that you're about to list or go look at is in a high fire severity zone, please reach out. That is what I am here for. There is never a cost, you know, until the closing of escrow. I can look it up for you. I can tell you yes or no. And so that way, you know, moving forward what you need to do.
Thank you, Lisa. If nobody else has any questions, I appreciate it. You coming today and taking your time to inform all of us. And thank you everybody for coming on the call. Any other questions? No? Okay, well, we're all here to help you. Denise and I are here to help you with title and escrow. Lisa's here to help you with the fire hardening and defensible space issue. And how do we get a hold of you, Lisa? I
am right now typing it in to the chat for you. You can either call me anytime. I'm available for you guys 7 days a week. I mean, everybody, you know, works 7 days a week, and so do I. Sometimes you need to know right then. So you can call me at 559-213-7404, or you can email me at lisa@snapnhd.com.
Now, is Snap NHD the only one that's providing the form with the?
We are. We are actually. Snap NHD is the only NHD company that is licensed by Car to provide the form for you in our report if it's applicable. Okay. So if the form is needed, it will be in our report for you. So then you don't even have to think or wonder or go get it yourself. It would be in that report as soon as you ordered it through Snap NHD.
Okay, and how much are your NHD for residential properties? That includes environmental, natural hazard. What's your price on that?
$99.95.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
All right. Does anybody else have any questions for Lisa? There's something in the chat room. Let me look.
I just put my information.
Okay, never mind then. Okay, well, thank you, everybody. Have a fantastic day. Thank you, Lisa.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.